Everybody's here. The mayor has excused herself. Okay, good. Okay. So, welcome everybody to the workshop session as part of the TV Valley Community Board, 5th of February. So we've got 3 items on our workshop agenda: containers on reserves, roading policy, development workshop, and a long-term plan strategy session. So the first one we've got is a presentation by Maria Burnett on containers on reserves. Maria, thanks for coming along.
Thank you. All right, containers on reserves. So I'm going to give you a short overview of why we're bringing you this work and what we've learnt and the direction we're proposing. Across the district, we've had a growing number of shipping containers on reserves, and many of them have started as temporary storage for clubs, events, or operational needs. Over time, many of them have ended up staying longer than intended, and more groups are asking for them. The issue that we're seeing is that containers can affect the look and feel of a reserve. They take up recreation space, and in some cases, they become semi-permanent without clear authorisation. Some are well managed, and others are a little bit more unsightly or sit outside a formal lease or licence. At the moment, we don't have a consistent district-wide approach. So what this means is that the decisions are varying between reserves, and staff are spending a lot of time navigating the Reserves Act process case by case without clear policy direction. So that's the main thing we're trying to overcome here.
So when you talk about the reserve, you're talking about council-owned land that is council reserve land.
Yeah, so yeah, exactly that. Parks, reserves, council-owned parks and reserves.
So they could be leased by somebody. It could be leased land.
Yeah.
Could be.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah. So we're looking to this now because we want to protect the amenity and recreation value of our reserves, and we want to ensure fairness for all community groups by treating requests consistently, and we want to move along from long-term reliance on containers because they're not good permanent solutions in all cases. We also want to give clear guidance to both staff and clubs so expectations are transparent. Right now, some containers are authorised, some aren't, and many don't have time limits. With an audit of existing containers on our reserves having taken place at the end of 2025, now is the right time to set up a clear framework. So before we jumped into this work, we looked a lot at what other councils were doing, and no surprises there. Other councils are sort of struggling with this topic as well. And we looked at the different ways that councils are dealing with this. The themes that we got though were most councils don't encourage containers on reserves. Containers are often, they start as a short term, but then they become permanent by default. Where they do allow them, there are usually strict conditions. So thinking about screening, colour, cladding, time limits, looking at limits and where they're allowed to be. Approvals are nearly always tied to leases or licences under the Reserves Act. But most importantly, there's a clear shift towards shared storage solutions rather than every club having their own container. What this review helped us with was understanding the balance between supporting community groups and protecting reserve values, and that's probably quite an important piece here too. We're not, the supporting community groups part is important here. Obviously, with the Parks and Rec team, we want people to be recreating. We don't want to make it harder, but we just have to make sure things are fair. So we are proposing a council policy supported by a clear internal procedure, and we can just look over to the next one, please. Thanks. The containers on reserves policy, the key elements will be that containers are generally discouraged, but still possible where there's genuinely a need and where there are no practical alternatives, such as shared facilities. There will be a time limit, maximum of 2 years, for no automatic renewals. Applicants would need to show that they've stored, shared or integrated storage, so not just defaulting to the container. Any approved container would require a license to occupy with clear conditions around design, colour, screening, location and maintenance. We also have talked about a fee as a part of the license to occupy. Existing containers would be reviewed and transitioned over time, so we're aware that we've got containers and groups that have their shipping containers out there on the reserves. So we'll work through that with the individual community groups and transition them. So it'll be a little bit like a sink inlet approach. Council-led operation of containers will also still be permitted. So this approach is going to give us consistency, clarity and fairness while still giving community groups a workable pathway where storage is essential. The idea of today is that we just want to get some of your early feedback before we finalise the policy and then bring it to council for consideration. We're looking for your thoughts on the proposed direction, anything we've missed, how this will work on the ground in your ward. We've done this now with all of the other community boards, and this is the last one. We've had some really good feedback so far. One thing that was raised when we spoke about a fee in a previous meeting, it's been raised, what about a bond? So that could be an option as well. But do you have anything to add to that, David?
Good immigration.
How many containers do we have in our ward?
We have approximately 7.
And TVCB what?
That's CODC wide, yeah. Oh, sorry, in the board. So we actually don't have any here that we're aware of, but there may be some that haven't come up in the audit. So actually, the good thing about having these meetings is that we've found out about more that we didn't know about, so it just helps add to the picture. Yeah.
And so just refresh me at the beginning, you probably mentioned this, but the driver for creating this policy is to stop untidiness effectively.
No, I would say that the driver is to make sure that we've got a consistent approach on how we deal with this, because right now we're wasting more time by being reactive and not having a policy. So the key driver is to make sure that we've got a consistent approach. One of the downfalls to containers is that they're a little bit unsightly. It's not the only reason. We do have a lot of buildings that aren't being used to their full capacity for storage. And sometimes the reasons that we're hearing is it's essentially that groups aren't sort of finding a way to get along and to share those buildings together, which is like, it's not unique to us. This is actually happening at Christchurch, it's happening in Gisborne, it's happening everywhere. So this is it's quite useful to understand that we're not the only ones that deal with these things.
That last bit there is probably quite key, that we have fairness across all groups that are operating on one reserve. And this gives us a bit of a policy and a guideline that we can use when people look for storage solutions. More often than not, there are buildings that have solutions, and then if there's not, hence the 2-year sort of runway, that gives us time to plan and see what we need to do as the communities keep growing and stuff as well. So to your point, Mark, it's not, as far as we're aware, a big thing here. Not aware of any, however, is to be consistent across the district, and I'm sure that it's probably not too far away, especially with fantastic growing sports hubs that are around the valley.
Yeah. No, appreciate being involved in the discussion. Any questions from the team?
I tend to think it's got to be mindful you're dealing with small organisations, and so if it is a fee, I get cost recovery, but yeah, I do probably think it follows. My initial thoughts are is a bond mechanism. For a small club, it's a one-off, an ongoing fee that have a container or a storage facility might be prohibitive for people, for some organisations. Not that your bond might be too, depending on what it is, but I just keep that in mind, you're dealing with small organisations that, don't have a lot of money in some cases, and they're just there for pure enjoyment and social satisfaction, and money's not a big part of their club or their group. So whatever costs you impose on them, just be mindful of it.
And presumably, once you do have a policy and if there is funds, a cost involved, you'll roll that into a renewal of their lease or a renewal of their MOU or whatever it is at that point.
Yeah, I guess depending on the storage facilities that after, it's probably better that we take a facility approach and look, okay, the fund rooms that if we do use Alexandra and Molyneux Stadium up there, for example, there's lots of storage places up there that,
Yeah,
lots of storage rooms and things like that, and just making sure that they're well used and allocated and people know about them and all of that kind of stuff.
yeah.
We have had some instances where containers have just shown up and been put in front of other containers or beside other containers and things like that.
Yeah.
So, and there's always a reason for it. It's just
Yeah.
to make sure that, that us as staff are able to operate consistently with everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
If you have any more feedback, feel free to send me an email and, yeah. Yeah, it's not too late for more feedback.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, thanks very much. All right. Thank you. So the second item here now is roading policy development workshop. And we've got Paul Fleck and Holly Labrador.
Hello.
Good.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, just a quick introduction. So I am Holly Laverick in the roading department as a roading asset engineer. So today's workshop, we're just wanting to talk through the review of the roading policy. So the last time was written was 2015, it hasn't had any sort of substantial changes since then, so we are looking at revising that. We won't be going through all of the sections that you can see in front of you, because the majority of it is just being changed to meet the new templates and to make it more readable and concise, but the actual content of it is not changing. So what we just want to do today is run through the ones that are either being removed or there are some significant changes. So we'll start with the removal list. So what we're looking at there is that we're not removing them as council policies. We're just sort of shifting them into areas that make probably a little bit more sense. So the likes of alfresco dining and burgers and mobile activities will be covered under the trading in public places bylaw. That's a more sort of sensible place for those to sit. We've also got stock movement across roads and road stock across roads. They're currently covered in both the policy and the bylaw. So what we're going to do is just align with legislation and other councils which have them just as their own bylaw. So then when you change one, you don't have to change both. In regard,
So just difference between a bylaw and a policy is
So-
so you can enforce a bylaw.
yes, so essentially the policy is how we're sort of going to run these things, and they generally have standardised legislation that we can lean on, and those will all be linked within the policy. A bylaw is more one where we've been given the power to create our own means, so there's no specific centralised way of managing it. So we have that control of sort of creating that individual thing that we can then enforce. So it leans on legislation, but it also means we have our own way of sort of writing it up. Road stopping, we've been looking at, so essentially that's the sort of taking a bit of road and making it into a private, amalgamating into a private property or what have you. It could be a portion of road or the whole thing. And we're looking at that being a standalone policy because it's only really in the road policy because it's called road stopping, but it's actually more of a property issue. The property team manage it. They're also rewriting this part of the policy. So we think it's probably a better fit to have that sort of taken out and separated. So we're just looking into that as well. Then we'll go and have a look at the more significant changes. Just apologies for the error in the printing there, it's covered it out, but that actually says temporary traffic management is the first one there. So we've renamed that to working on or near road reserve, just to better reflect that not everything in that process is about the cones on the road. You actually have to come and get the, permissions to work and all that kind of thing. So it's just a bit more holistic. And we've also sort of incorporated some of the other sections into this because they were related. So the likes of event and civil work road closures. And we've also introduced a new section which is specific to motorsport events, which I'll have a look at in a minute in a bit more specificity. But the big thing in temporary traffic management is that we've moved away from references of the code of practice, COTHM, to align it with the New Zealand Guide of Temporary Traffic Management and the Health and Safety at Work Act 2015, just because NZTA and central government have moved away from a code and then more about a risk-based approach.
Yeah.
Did you want to have a quick chat?
Yeah, so just following on from Holly's comments here around NZG TTM. So we received a letter from NZTA in July last year, all councils did, all local authorities, basically mandating that we move from the historic code of practice methodology for traffic management to the risk-based method. So I'm currently rolling out a project jointly with QLD to basically transition into the new model. All the state highway network in New Zealand is now running under that system, and obviously the tie back to the Health and Safety Act as well too. So the reason we're doing it joint, there's a couple of reasons we're doing it jointly with QLD. One is from a cost perspective, so we've got quite a good cost share agreement, so it's a 60-40 split, with them picking up 60%, just being a little bit larger, but also getting some consistency across the district as well too, because pretty much the same contractors are working on their network as on ours, so if we can get some consistency, it'll make it more efficient for suppliers as well too. So we're about halfway through that project at the moment, working with a consultant who's had a lot of experience in rolling this out for both NZTA, but probably more importantly, Auckland Council as well. So 1 July 2026 is the start date for that. We're already seeing traffic management plans being submitted under the new guidelines, and we're just assessing those as they come in. And we have people that have got some knowledge around the new process as well too. So yeah, so that's.
So is this a view to, would you say it's changed to a more specifics of the actual, rather than having hard and fast rules, it's like, based on the specifics of the location, you can rather than go, you must have 10 cones per 50 metres, you can go, well, in this case,
Traffic volumes at 10 vehicles a day or something like that, 20 vehicles a day. Yeah, so that's the sort of thing that people can start doing.
yeah,
And we will see some reduction in cost in traffic management. I mean, that's a significant cost to any project.
yeah,
And we're sitting at probably around about 400K a year just for the maintenance, for the general maintenance contract alone. I think you'll see some changes in that lower impact work with the amount of TTM that's on sites, but I think when it comes to large static sites, so rehabilitation sites, reseal sites, it doesn't look much different than what it did before, and that's purely because of the risk. In a 100K zone, traffic will still need that level of cones and signage to actually slow people down. Yeah, so I think it's quite exciting, and I think there's some opportunities, some efficiencies will come out of it. Yeah.
So how does it work? How does the risk-based approach work for a contractor that will, and correct me if I'm wrong, generally submit a plan to you that covers a general scope of work for a year?
Oh, the generic ones?
Yeah.
We'll still be accepting generic TMPs.
Yes, but then how does that work if it's risk-based? Like, are they going to roll out a generic plan for something that they don't need? I give an example, on a quiet road, and they've got a generic, and they just roll a generic plan out because it's easy, but the generic plan has more times and traffic management in it if they just done a separate plan for that specific job.
They even under the existing, the old COTHM rules, you can make changes anyway. So
Generic plans.
generic plans.
Okay.
You just need
specific jobs.
Yeah,
Right.
and they'd run that through the risk matrix again.
Right.
And score it, this looks good, this feels good.
Right. Okay. Cool.
And they'd note that down on site.
Yeah.
And keep a record of it. So the real key difference for us as an RCA is that we won't be approving traffic management plans anymore. We'll be reviewing them, we'll provide feedback, and we'll give the applicant permission to work on the network. So it is a little bit different. Before we were approving.
Yeah.
Now we're reviewing. So, and it's going to be important that, that our staff have have a good understanding of the risk assessment.
Yeah.
But also asking the right questions, because we won't be telling people what to do.
No.
We'll just be asking, we'll be asking questions like, have you thought about this?
Yeah.
If we pick up something we think they've missed something, what they've missed in the report.
So what's the incentive for them to reduce the amount of traffic management that they do on the job?
Oh, I mean, one is to reduce their costs, so we're more competitive.
Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously time factor as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah.
But they, no, so yes, it's putting the onus on them to self-manage it a little bit more by the sound of it.
Yeah, it's, yeah.
But if they're in a commercial operation, why would they do this work when they can cost it?
Yeah, I mean, we can provide feedback as you know, we can provide feedback and we can say, well, we believe that the impact of what you're proposing, you know, is too much, you know, explain to us why you need that level of traffic management for this particular location.
But if you said that you're going to review afterwards, not review, so you're going to review every activity before it takes place, or
Yeah.
review it after?
No, before it takes place. So there'll still be an application process that won't change.
But do you review traffic management? You don't review traffic management for the general maintenance contract?
We do audits and.
Yeah, you do an audit, yeah.
And we will continue to do spot auditing as well too.
Yeah,
Because I mean, we have a responsibility for public safety as well, and that's the key thing for us under legislation, is that that's our responsibility.
Yeah.
It's not our responsibility to tell contractors how to do the work, but it is our responsibility to make sure that they're doing it safely.
And we're not obliged to approve, or we don't use the word approve, but allow access to the corridor if we think there is a real and present danger to the general public.
Yeah.
So we still have that level to say you haven't risk assessed this correctly based on the road that you're on or what have you.
Yeah.
So just in the general maintenance contract work will be, you will only pull up over use of road cones, fire and all that like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was a specific job to
Or
put.
something, that region.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it won't be to the current bottom line. It won't be to the current bottom line.
So if you've got a specific job where they're putting in where a road's being changed, so that part will be like you're cutting off part of the road, smooth around the corner, is that what you call your general contract, or
Oh, no, repairing potholes.
repairing piles?
Yeah.
That's the general contract.
It's a job where they're.
It's more reducing on these,
That's where I'm coming
other
from.
roads of
Yeah.
services, I think it's coming from,
Yeah.
is that what you're trying to do? So if there's a culvert need cleaned, you don't have to have 50 road cones under the road.
Yeah, because that's where the issue is, in my opinion, is these low volume roads. It's excessive, it's traffic lights, the corridor is about 10 times longer than it needs to be, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I just look at it and I go, dollar, and I go, unproductive spend,
Yeah,
that money's in the wrong place, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So how will you pick that up? Will you spot check or what?
Yeah, with the part of our process and procedure, we'll have processing as well too, so that's not going to stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Sorry, right?
No, that's all right. Continuing on with temporary traffic management, but now we'll just have a look specifically at motorsport events. So as I mentioned before, this wasn't previously specifically covered in the policy. And we just want to have a bit more of a framework around it. It's not trying to dissuade people from coming and having events in the area. But it's more just to sort of cover our bases. So it includes pre and post event inspections so that we can see what the road looked like before and if they had actually caused any significant damages with the operation. Some additional information around public notification, particularly for people that live on the affected roads and streets. Some conditions around how we want the sites to be reinstated afterwards if we decide work is required. And also the option to bond the event organiser, potentially if there's sort of an unknown or it's a high risk activity. just to sort of give us a bit of insurance against those potential damages. The next sort of significant change, I suppose, is the fingerboard signs. So this one is not your street name signs. This is specifically ones that are for advertising, you know, and they talk about as a lookout over here or what have you. We've renamed the section to discretionary signs. This is just to highlight that these are privately owned signs. They're not necessarily council ones and they're not mandatory for the way the road functions. So in the past, there have been some non-standard fingerboard signs that have been allowed, and we want to sort of phase that out so that we're consistent with national standards, which is the traffic control devices legislation. Essentially what that means is that any existing signs that don't meet the current specs will be allowed to stay, but as they deteriorate and when they need to be replaced, we would expect them to be upgraded to the current standards or they'll be removed.
So but there's the signs that say coffee shop, 100 metres or park down the road, sort of thing.
Yes. So essentially the ones that you'll see, because the brown colour is the tourist
Yeah.
sign, that's sort of meant to be universally acknowledged, but they're not meant to be the small little fingerboards that sit under the road place name. That's something that has just sort of happened in the past and has never been brought up. And it does just mean that there are some things that aren't, like in Cromwell, there's a tourist sign that says dentist. It's not what it was intended for, so it's just trying to sort of get rid of.
So if someone wants to put a sign to say there's a pub down the road, square sign, how's that controlled?
So that is what's covered in that traffic control devices manual. So those signs do exist, but there's specific ways that they should be installed in certain sizes and font sizes and locations. So essentially we're just moving away from the little non-compliant fingerboard signs towards appropriate signage. Just for
They're easy to see, they're easy to see and easy to read.
Yeah.
So by default, that makes it safer because people are not, you know, really.
Is it be different for, so some could advertise by screen shop, but they could advertise.
No, so as part of this, it also means that the activities that can apply for a tourist sign become much more limited. So things like the specific, they're not meant to replace advertising signage. Essentially, it's more for things that are off the road. So it could be generic wineries for somewhere like Ernestley Road, which has multiple, and they're the larger standard signs. That's fine, but a specific cafe won't be allowed to just advertise using a tourist sign.
What about the likes of places that advertise raspberries and apricots?
They're generally not using the standard tourist signs anyway.
I'm confused. Well, this doesn't cover any of those sort of things.
Those are covered under advertising, which is a separate part of the policy. This is specifically the directional signage for
Direction.
directional permanent signage. So when you're driving on the state highway, they're usually the large brown signs that say look out 100 metres.
Yeah.
The way that they've been kind of rolled out across the Central Otago has been much smaller and they're not necessarily a tourist activity, even there's just a bit wild, some of the ones that have been allowed.
And if they're on a state highway, is that different?
No, so the standards would be fairly universal under the legislation, so. So the next one is dust suppression. So I'll just run through what the current policy sort of covers, which is the 2015 one. So currently residential properties that are within 100 metres of an unsealed road are eligible for a 100 metre length of dust suppression ceiling. You might have heard EcoSeal or Otter Seal, that's just the brand name, so we're just calling it dust suppression seal for that. But essentially that's what you might see on these unsealed roads. It looks a bit like a chip seal, but it's a specific product that kind of binds the fine materials so that it doesn't get, caught up in the air when people drive over it. So currently council covers the full cost of these dust suppression seals and their ongoing maintenance. There are some conditions which includes funding in the metalling program schedule. The policy also references oiling, which is a prohibited activity under the LRC, so we just want to remove that as well. What we're proposing with the dust suppression moving forward is to kind of line with councils. So looking at our neighbouring councils and slightly further afield, we are the only one that currently offers 100% subsidy. Clutha, Gore and Dunedin offer 50% to eligible properties, and Waitaki, Southland and Queenstown Lakes offer no subsidy at all. As if you apply, it's at your full cost.
What level of dust suppression work do you do a year? Like how many applications would you have?
Dollars wise, probably, around about 200K. Yeah. Yep, and we've got a backlog of them.
Yeah.
So to give you some idea of the cost, depending on where it is in the district, the location, of the request, they can vary anywhere between $10,000 and $15,000 per site.
Yeah.
So they are expensive and they're expensive to maintain, and we've got lots of them.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of them. And, you know, it is a bit of a ticking time bomb for us.
In terms of the maintenance.
In terms of the maintenance and the renewal of them as well.
Yeah, sorry, that's.
Yeah, so, what we're proposing with subsidy is that'll be in perpetuity as well too, so we'll maintain it for its useful life. But when it's at the end of life and it needs renewed, it'll be 50% again to renew it. Yeah.
How long, what's the life to renew?
Again,
Depending on-
it depends on traffic, it depends on geometry, gradient, but anywhere from sort of between 10 to 12 years, just depending on the situation. You tend to see lower lives where you've got farms with your main accesses coming onto a dust spreading seal and they're running trucks. Yeah, they're carrying trucks and tractors and stuff like that on. They tend to have a reduced life, but a nice straight bit of road, with a house alongside it, we'll probably will get that 10 to 12 years earlier. Yeah.
Quite a lot of lots, isn't it?
It is, yeah, and that's what we're trying to address.
So you get, no doubt, you get a negative feedback. On a case basis, and you.
Well, yeah, potentially, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's only for the benefit of one ratepayer. At every site. So, our sort of thinking is why should the whole ratepayer base be funding something that's for the benefit of one property? And there's probably an opposing argument in the rural areas, is what do we get for our rates?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a valid question as well too, and that's why we're proposing 50% and not no subsidy at all. That's the thinking around it.
With cover paper,
Sorry?
with cover and paper.
No,
No, if you're within 100 metres of paper road as well.
no.
Yeah.
There is also, just continuing on with dust suppression, some additional eligibility criteria. So if someone builds a house or sites a tiny house within like 100 metres after the policy is enacted, they will not be considered eligible and will be required to pay 100%, just because they effectively put the house that close to the road. There's no surprises there with the dust. Now, just wanted to go over some additional policies that are being added. These aren't any change to the way that the roading team sort of runs things day to day. We just sort of noticed that they were never in the policy and we see value in adding them, so put them down. Road lighting, is essentially just sort of outlining our expectations about the type of luminaires and poles that can be used. And it will also refer back to the public spaces lighting policy, just around dark skies. We're also looking at adding in the no spray zones, and overweight and overconnection. Vehicle permits, just what council offers and what they have to go to NZTA for in regards to those large vehicles. And then the last is just the general improvements. So as part of this, we've also identified some forms that either don't exist or need to be updated. So we'll tidy those up at the same time. And the policy itself, unless you print it out, will be a live searchable document, which will link to all the relevant legislation and all the other supporting bylaws and policies on the council website. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Feel free to keep a copy, but we've got one more of these to do from the sake of will.
No, I don't need one.
Yeah, I'll
You,
give one.
you did good that. Good. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Aaron.
Got one more. Conspiracies.
It says like,
That was, interesting. So, the last one is, long-term planning, strategy session.
easy going, taking it, selling, all of the different state in Australia. Sorry, but.
If you look at the value of both of these airports, they've got 600 energy plants in the middle of the airport. Just in case they get invasion.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is there anywhere in New Zealand that you could do?
Yeah, we've sold most of them. We're good. Yeah.
Okay, folks, so we're now, on to the last agenda item, which is a
Yeah.
workshop session covering long-term plan and strategy. And we've got, Alex Crosby and Amelia Lyon, so.
Not Amelia.
So it sounds like it's very effective. Do you have the PowerPoint?
Just coming up, so.
So we're here to talk through today the community board priorities. We have used the strategy session we did at the end of last year to pre-populate as much as we can. So we'll mostly be doing the sense check with like the right things in here, ticked the right boxes, which will make sense when we get to it. And then looking just for you to make the adjustments with me for me to take the report to council.
This is our bridge can be in long-term plan.
And where we are that.
Not probably Curtis.
Been refining their priorities, and that was mentioned earlier in this meeting, so when we get to that you can repeat that further thinking in there.
Yeah, we've got a great new photo library, so expect to see quite a few amazing.
So at least it's on the long-term plan somewhere.
Well, you can put it in there today for us. So this here is the high level timeline for delivery of the long-term plan, and I believe 345 work days from what we calculated this week, which is making Saskia and I a little sleepless. We're currently in February, so we're here to get a gauge from you on the priorities and the theme that the long-term plan might have. We'll take that as a report to council in March. I believe it is April, May that we'll be back to let you know how that went, and then again in August. And we will come back after that, which is not as specific on the date because that will depend on the frequency you want to see us. The next slide will show you the long-term plan team as we've set it up. So we've got Saskia, myself and Amelia working to project manage this one. We do have a new corporate planner coming in who may take over that, and I'll keep going with the strategy side of things. And then you can see the mayor, councillors, audit and risk committee, and yourselves all playing a really active role in this one. And I'll jump on to the next. This is the strategic scan. That's really us doing our best guess of the external environment you're facing as you make these decisions over the next 18 months for the 10 years beyond that. It should have been circulated to you all. The main thing to emphasise there is that level of financial constraint and uncertainty is really unprecedented for local government. We're seeing a lot of factors that were signalled in the early 2000s start to come to fruition and trying to navigate through that. So it's a very different environment to the last time we delivered a long-term plan. And we have no idea what the environment will look like when we deliver the next one. So our job here is to navigate through that environment as best we can. Next slide. To help do that, the council sat down with an expert in local government strategy called Alicia Mackay to come up with a model on how they will prioritise and make decisions to give the best advice back to yourselves and to the community on what they were doing so that we could get that work together under those parameters. So they have come up with their 4 key priorities and weighted them. As you can see on the slide, though I can send it to you in close up because it's very small, funding will take up 50% of that criteria when you're making a decision. That's not just what it costs, but how much it sets us up to have a better financial future. So that's looking at alternative financial arrangements, ways to make us less dependent on rates and on central government and more able to spend and invest as a council. 25% of the decision making is towards what we call protection, and that's as we're growing and changing as a region, we're still custodians of our local identity, the things that make this place great, the things that make people want to live here, making future focused decisions for our infrastructure, protecting local identity and influencing the community as we move forward. And then we've got the second aspect to that below, which is attraction, which is 15% of the role for council overall. And that's to make sure this is a vibrant place where we're attracting people who want to live here, want to travel here. We've got workers, innovation. We keep that pioneering spirit from the protection element, but also bring it into this attraction element. And you really see a lot about economic development, support for industries and businesses, tourism, and not to jump ahead, but quite a few of your focuses as a community sitting here as well. And then regional leadership is our influence on both Otago and New Zealand as a whole. So making sure we've got that through line up from those priorities into legislation, where we move outside of strict government, local government functions and into things like leadership on healthcare, advocacy for the things our communities have told us that they need. That's just in the place. And that's the overall model of what council will be looking at, making decisions both for this term and through this long-term plan process. From there, we took the strategy session that you put together. We pulled out these themes. These have been slides I've been touching on so lightly with the boards, but they've actually been my favourite to pull together because outside of the priorities as you've set them and the ways to make decisions, they're just the things that are quite obvious in the projects that each board has pulled together. So here there was a huge focus on community confidence, on improving the level of clarity that we're giving the community to increase the level of engagement from them. There was a real thing of supporting an older population as they age, and there was a real focus on activities and vibrancy. I have put Roxburgh because that was an assumption on my part, but there may be other parts of the Tibet Valley as well. And that's where your dining, your outdoor dining offering and other vibrancy offerings were starting to come through in the report. From there onto the next slide, we put the priorities as we listed them into this quite confusing table. So what it represents is those 4 quadrants as council have put as priorities. And just to try to help us with this as an exercise, I've sized the table to those as percentages. So funding is taking up 50% of the table, protection 25, attraction 15, and regional leadership 10, just to provide a visual of where they're all sitting. You had 4 priorities that were your key priorities and then a list of other projects you'd get to if you could. Strategists are mean how they do that to us all, I know. But I put all of them here because the thing we need to get today is anything you might want to advocate for in your long-term plan, so we can make sure that if there's any questions it brings up, any analysis we need to do, we have an early signal of what that is. You still have time to take things off, and you still have time to add more things in the future. And for the rest of the session, what we will do is we'll go through these one by one, talk through what the specific ask would be in the long-term plan, if it would be in the long-term plan, or if it's something that the board would just deliver directly on their own. And then if you could just sense check if I've ticked the right places. I've found I'm not always seeing the funding angle immediately, and when I speak to the board, it's often there. So don't be overwhelmed, there aren't ticks there. I have it open and I'm just adding the ticks as we go. The very first one we have on the list is quite obviously the town hall rebuild. I have ticked protection on that, and there are other elements, but my first question on that one, as I'm on the strategy, not the operational side, is if that would be in the RTP, or if that was largely covered by insurance for the proposal you have, and there's no need for us to have that one in there.
We'll tell you in March, because if it stays on the existing site, it won't enter the LTP. And
It depends on the, no, I think independent of site, the cost of the build.
Well, Yeah.
You must have been wiring all that.
Yeah. But what Mark's saying is even if it's staying on the current site. You asked, what's your
Yeah,
question?
but what I'm saying is that even if it stays on the current site, we might decide that we want to get some funding from community funds, trusts, and we might ask for some money from the council as well, because we want a facility that's a 100-year facility. I take the point that we've got the money, but, you know, depending on it.
That's the next step. We're misquoted in the media this morning, which was a great opportunity to correct. When the Darcy said, if there's a flash playground, she means now's the time to tell us. She doesn't mean there's money for that. So, and that's same thing. If you have an idea, now's the time to tell us so we can do the work.
Yeah.
And then it's considered by council amongst, everything else.
Yes.
That's up there. So, in terms of timeframes, in terms of all the ideas to go in there, our main budget, hopefully will be July, August this year. And that's when council will see the totality, will see, we'll obviously do some modelling, we'll start seeing what that rates impact is. But in essence, in terms of the blocks, because I know that we're working group and you're working through all those options, when we would absolutely need to have a recommendation from this board up to council by the end of this year. Basically, we need to be ready end of year with the consultation document to audit early next year. So that's sort of the timeframes with things, and there's nothing stopping us. You know, once you have direction, we'll Sarah to organise a special board meeting that can make sure that we fit it in with the council meeting. So
Yeah. So bring that worry about a financial constraint at the next step. For now, what would you need to set up for the future? Then how much of it can you deliver on this long-term plan?
But, with the high level forward planning you know, I've gone through a lot of budgeting processes in my time. I know that if you don't get something in at the very beginning, your chance of sliding it in later on is
Reduced.
very limited. And so I want to make the point very, very, very clear that an assumption that we won't ask for any funding is completely wrong. We will definitely be asking for funding. There is no doubt about that.
That's what I want.
We'll definitely be asking for funding. And it'll be, presumably, that'll be a council's decision as to whether that is accepted.
You're correct.
So I want to turn that around 50% or 100%, depending which way you look at it. But, to have it up there, assume that we don't want any funding is completely wrong.
No, unsure. So that's a great answer for you.
Would if you, David, if you did want funding for the existing site, that would delay the project. Yeah, no, I'm just letting you know.
and we do have very likely a very financially constrained environment. The likelihood with the best playgrounds feature.
I don't disagree. Put it in there, because it covers us, but.
Yeah, but we're now the time to raise it.
When we put the tax into the spot, so here I'm looking at the benefits it delivers against those 4 areas for council. There was very obviously a protection tax for this, that's a part of the way of life in this community. I thought there was potentially an attraction, and depending on how you deliver a funding tax, so I just wanted to move to this table, and not enough detail that your elected member can discuss it with council and questioned on which of these you'd like picked when this report goes to council. If it just sits in that protection sphere, if it has benefits within funding, attraction or regional leadership as well.
These concepts are new to me, in terms of, the long-term plan. So, yeah.
So should we be considering a tax for attraction as well? If we're trying to attract people, or is it more about reaching?
That's what it's going to do, definitely.
Yeah, and as Alex said, this was sort of our attempt on the knowledge. You guys are the ones giving us all these conversations about this project. So that was our best guess. And we do want to sense check it all. So if you, as a board, that actually one of our goals with the rebuild is to be attracting people to Roxburgh with the offerings within, absolutely, we'll check that.
If you're going to create something so architectural, it's an example for the region, we'll check regional leadership. If there's a new funding model I should consider, we can check funding, just give me the light.
Take funding and attraction, I think so.
Okay, absolutely.
But in terms of,
We'll have to justify it
Yeah.
eventually. Get to that down the road.
We will.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm mindful that the previous long-term plan had 60 million development in it. And of that, 600,000 was for us. And that was to fix the poo ponds.
Right.
So, we want to tick in almost every box for at least the top floor,
Okay.
we-
I can shut the tax there. You just might have to retrospectively work with your member to make sure you can back up these.
well, why would it be retrospectively? We haven't even, this is the beginning, isn't it?
Do you have a good argument for the funding tick for me before I took it?
For
So-
which?
Funding for the town hall rebuild. So not everything is always going to take this funding thing. Just by the nature of local government, some things just cost us and they don't provide any funding arrangement, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. So it's only 50% of the consideration for that reason. It doesn't mean it's an automatic no. It just means that it ticks the other boxes and it needs to stand up on other reasons.
so would we be looking at, because I was just having a side check there, because I wondered the same thing, what would be the funding element here that, at the moment, obviously these facilities usually cost ratepayers, right? But if you're thinking of bringing in, commercial tenants, running a cafe out of it, alternative, revenue streams that will bring income for council and take away the rates burden, that's sort of what council were thinking at, or for that.
So is the funding, like if we took funding as a not a tick for, we may ask for a capital contribution.
No.
Right, and that's what they will get. That's right, that's where people get confused, yeah.
Sorry, for the funding, we're saying there is a funding angle as towards council's priority. So there's a benefit to the way council funding takes place, not that you need funding.
Council would have to fund
Yeah.
some of the operating costs as they do now.
And to be fair, the Cromwell board told me last night to change this column to financing benefit, and I just forgot to this morning, so let's call it the financing.
So it's not
benefit.
funding for the build, it's like, what's council's obligation?
It's operational funding, not capital funding.
It's,
Wow.
and it's not an outcome. So a protection outcome would protect the way of life in this district. An attraction outcome would attract people to this district. And a funding outcome would change the way that council funding is balanced, so reduce the impact on ratepayers.
And as we said earlier, there are just things that council do, that cost money. It really is when Curtis and his colleagues are sitting around the table and they've got, the projects from the TVCB, the projects from Cromwell, the Vincent, and we can't afford it all. They're going to be weighing up these projects with this as a guiding framework.
So it's a tick because we need to, it's a tick because and it hasn't, nothing's been decided, but there is a conversation around, do you have a cornerstone tenant there that activates the building and if it's a commercial tenant,
Yeah,
they'll be paying the lease.
so we've got a commercial tenant, we've got.
Not that we do, I'm gonna be very careful because people that
Got these
don't
elements.
know if we're talking about one bar last time.
I
you know.
do want to pause for a second and just give the chair a moment to catch up, because we've spoken without giving you a second to read your think. Is it starting to make sense or is it still clear as mud?
No, I'm still not clear. Are we saying you tick that box if we need, it's going to be an operational funding? Are we starting from a zero base?
No, what we're trying to overlay the board's priorities with the councillors' priorities. And one of the councillors' priorities is diversifying income.
We don't want.
And that's what we call funding here. So what
It's income funds.
and income, so, yeah.
Right.
So is there an aspect of the whole bill that might diversify income?
There potentially could be. For the,
So, yeah, we get a cafe in there that we get a lease from, et cetera.
Yeah, that's the whole, but yeah, because we don't know, but yes, absolutely. There's a nice idea, we're exploring these options, we're working with the insurance budget, there's a nice funding element. I'm worried about the space, but I'm sure it'll start to make sense in a moment.
it's not council funding us, it's. It is, yeah, what did Cromwell suggest as a name of it?
They said climate fund, I think that was the same problem, I liked what Rebecca just called it.
Yeah, just think of, lessening the impact on rates. So
Yeah.
if there's stuff within your priorities that you think, actually, if we do this, we invest, but what it means is.
What about rate pay?
Or there's going to be no, over time. it
Rate
means-
impact.
Yeah, the rating,
Yeah, okay, right, moot point. Yeah,
but there's a potential, is what I'm hearing from the board, that as part of your thinking, that there might be commercial tenants in there and hence that
Well,
generate.
part of the thinking is that, part of the thinking is that it would be great if it was an activated building, and part of that activating it may or may not mean it has a commercial
Yeah, yeah.
tenant.
Let's tip that, because we know that we're gonna, and Alex will reflect in the report, and council's well aware that, you're still going through the process of deciding what this all looks like, so, we can refine that as we go through.
So with community housing, that will bring some money in because presumably if you were to build community housing, you could get some revenue.
Potentially, yes, that would correct, yeah,
It's highly likely the cost will exceed. Get some
but you
revenue.
don't get to buy the stream in a way, you've thought that through in this proposal, so that's what council need to say. Yeah,
So would you take the funding for community housing?
yeah, and you can't see it on that screen because I'm working on this one, but as you're updating, we can just do it over here. The multi-use sports centre, I haven't ticked anything because I just wasn't clear from your strategy document, having worked on Cromwell, who have an indoor sports centre, if yours was indoor or outdoor, indoor. So that is obviously protection and attraction. Are there any other boxes to tick on that one?
I'm wondering about the town hall or building attraction.
It is, yeah.
Already,
Yeah. It's all about regional leadership at the moment.
So,
Again, the multi-use sports centre may attract some fees, some incoming money, but the income will far exceed by the operating costs.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is normal for council business, right?
Yeah, I mean, it also depends who knows if Ministry of Education could jump on board that it might not be anything that council has to put any money into or.
And that's great for exploring partnerships with other
Yeah,
agencies and co-benefits, that's a tick in that box.
All very infant, but that's sort of where I'm going, so that's one thing.
The good thing about these infant proposals is they cost less to start with, so don't be too concerned about that. It worked out in Cromwell's benefit, putting low cost next to some big things.
So what's the actual LTP ask there? The town hall's really clear. I mean, you're working through it, so we don't know what dollar there will be, but your multi-use sports centre, is that an investigation into the possibility in this LTP? What would be the LTP ask there?
town hall, well, what is the so what I said before. The issue with asking to put the town hall into a longer name is your delay.
Yeah, for the town hall, yeah, that's for the sports centre. What are you wanting Alex to ask or to alert council that might be the ask from this community board for the sports centre? Is it money to do with strategy? What would be the financial aspect of that you'd like? Investigation.
The early stages will incur too much money, much cost, but
We can also put as a signal for some future, I'll see if we can currently explore and enriching.
Yeah, so this might be something that more comes 2030, like there's the thinking over the next couple of years. And then when we come to the next LTP, that it's like, okay, this is what we want and this is what we're thinking the money needs to grow.
we're trying to give me an example here, say that we think it's going to cost $1.5 million to extend the current general school.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, as a team, we want to support it together to try and help enable that in some way. We aren't school, hopefully the school is some, run by the ministry, but, the ministry aren't going to help it happen, and maybe we could help it happen. So, I mean, can't see a lot of cost apart from some design costs at the end of that, but during the next 2 years, we'll probably go through some initial ideas about how it might happen. That's how we see that.
I guess that, first of all, there has to be a case to be made, and that's what perhaps the preliminary work would make.
As a business case.
And that might be something that's considered in the first sort of 3 years of the LTP. And then subsequent development, because there is no money for this, there is no provision for this, would need to be worked into, you know, if there might be something that's flagged in the years, in the out years, but first of all, the case has to be made, the business case would have to be prepared to say this is warranted, justified, and all that sort of stuff. So it's hard just to put something in there and say
Yeah.
a multi-use sports centre, but
When do we put it in? That's.
Yeah.
well, part of it is it's demand led as well.
Yes.
Because
So give us an example, how did the Manuhera
Yeah.
pub end up?
that one was earthquake prone, so that was couldn't be used, so it needed a community facility.
And
Right.
it was a whole lot of, as Peter suggested, the process for the business case is what should happen.
Yes, that's what I mean, that's what I'm trying to.
That was,
It was the grassroots process.
That's right.
LGP.
And they funded it and CLT got them behind it.
Right.
What I would say is, you know, and slightly off track, but where I came from, up their town hall, you did pickleball in there, you did floor hockey, you did bowling, and you did badminton. If the roof was a little bit higher, they would have done basketball.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when you think about the town hall rebuild as
Yeah.
well, utility is what gives you more options.
And one of the 4 key points that the steering group made around it is a multi-purpose, multifunctional
Yeah,
building.
and so that could
Yeah.
answer some of the questions around sports use.
Yeah.
But to, you know, I couldn't see the council saying in the next 3 years, we're gonna fund the development of the sports centre, but we might fund the business case that's gonna look at that. And then that could be something that's brought into the next LTP, because it's just, I think that next 3 years is probably gonna be spoken to. But, you know, a business case could be something that's on the cards.
Yeah, well, then we could look at it as something like a needs assessment.
Yeah,
Some of the other,
oh, that's probably in this too, isn't it?
Yeah, that's long.
Just having read that.
No, yes.
The email that says how in the board, how do we think about some of the actions that have been made?
Yeah, well, it reinforces the reason why,
And you got to remove, yeah, sorry.
but I think the first few years, I think it'd be quite conceivable to say, look, we'd like a detailed analysis done on this and some work done. I think that's fair and reasonable.
But the council resolution on the entertainment centre rebuild in December has to incorporate it. So, you know, there's a gateway there for what you've just said around the sports centre is in here. Or multi-use sports facility is in this community plan that has to be taken into account when you come out with the design for the entertainment centre.
Yeah, and look, if you look at LTPs, they sort of sometimes flag in years 6, 7, 8, 9, ambitious projects, but they just too hard to commit to right now. But they flag it and they sort of throw some money at it, and as a holding pattern, for you know, third consideration in the next LTP.
So we voted for 50,000 to come out of our reserves for some sort of this planning. So we
Yeah,
voted
but then, but
you said we
essentially,
need to use our own reserves for that.
no, I don't think you would have to. I think that would just come out of the general rating pool that does all the work for council now.
And that
So it
actually,
shouldn't cost the community any more.
but one thing, that Curtis at the table could advocate when it comes up for that discussion, if the rating just isn't bad enough, that is an option.
Yeah.
That, you know, we can look to reserves, but that would be the second option, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I sort of, yeah, the sports centre, I would, my first avenue would be to push it into the hall rebuild. And then as a second avenue, if there wasn't enough room in that building for it and not enough community appetite to have something like that, then reassess next, you know, after the design and,
More bang for buck, isn't it?
yeah.
That's exactly where my brain is.
Yeah.
heading.
Yeah.
It's an all-in-one, it's everything.
Yeah, so and the steering group by and large are of the same opinion. It's just certain elements of town.
Yeah.
But how part of what like, and that's something cautious and that's a sport.
Yeah.
And then you play and.
Yeah, so it's multi-purpose.
Yeah, so, yeah, I don't know, the sport, the sports centre. Yeah. Where do we go with that, like today, for your LTP priorities?
I have put in pretty much each day, minus the question I asked at the end of the meeting. But what's quite clear here is that you're a board that's been trying to deliver a lot within the board itself. So please do remember we have a whole council that if you have these 4 top priorities and you want to know what can we do next, we can give you some answers. You can send it through Sarah and Wayne. This is a question you have to start. Saskia and I can have a look. We can say, what are the options? What are the pathways for you? We give it back to you and you can decide which to take. So it's not just LTP, you do have advisors to help you outside that process.
That's very useful. I mean, as a board over the last 3 or 4 trienniums, I think we've been guilty of not bringing things to the table early enough. And I guess part of that has been that the community is scared of rates increases. And they're scared to put their head in because they might get charged. But I think that the utility value of what they might get would exceed what they're charged.
Yeah.
But they don't see that. They say if you're going to get charged $10, don't put your hand up.
No, I think it's also, they haven't asked because there's the element of being forgotten. I think that's the feeling as well. It's, if we're going to ask, we're just going to get turned down because everything goes to Cromwell, everything goes somewhere else. So I think there's that element as well. So I think that we're trying to change that. To say, hey, we're putting a hand up. We are part of the, we're part of Central too. So yeah, it's just changing that narrative. I think if we get bang for a buck, then absolutely we're going to support it.
And it was historically very hard for this board with the element that was board funded.
Yeah.
We didn't have the rate payers. So
Yeah.
of course, if you, the pool was an amazing example of community fundraising. But in terms of if that had been all fully, rated for, at least Vincent and Cromwell got the population with those topped out where you guys really suffered. So that's actually a real benefit for you guys of the district-wide funding decision is that these projects, credit's good, we're talking when it comes to it, it's council time, is that cost is spread out throughout the whole district now. So it just won't land on the heavier ratepayers.
And so quite often it takes a couple of LTPs to get the idea into it. So never be discouraged, just bring it back.
Well, River Park started before I started, so they were having conversations with council way back in 2015, 16, 17. And it's, getting built now, so.
Thanks a lot.
Takes a while, yeah.
I've got to get going because I've got a board meeting, but that community housing, I think that's something that will play out in this LTP. I think it's going to be consistent across the council and the district. This council's sort of gone down this path before and it hasn't really moved beyond discussions of maybe establishing a trust sort of. But there's discussions that we might look to engage a community trust, something like Queenstown or whatever, their one, which is actually quite successful in doing some really good community builds now. Because this council has 98 community homes for elderly. So there's quite a bit of money on the books there that could be better utilised to grow the asset. And also, we do have land, and so there's the potential that if we had the means, that could be taken forward. And so you could find the potential for development and that sort of stuff, utilising existing land and leveraging the existing asset base to enable that, i.e. the housing. It just means it wouldn't sit with us anymore, but it would go into a community trust holders and they'd own it. And they would fund it and they would maintain them and all that sort of stuff. So there's a bit of work to be done in that space, but that could be something that we're seeing it in Cromwell right now. And as I say, we also have 98 homes that we currently are responsible for. Some of them are here in the district. And they're all here.
So if you mean runners, that speech, I just went to bring forward.
No, I must go.
I wasn't sure if this was an LTP priority, to be honest. I ticked it because it had those really clear angles to it, potentially even has an attraction one, but I thought that is more you advocating within your local community to support, right, rather than the LTP.
So these four issues came to the top because that's what was indicated in the community plan in terms of how much agitation and desire is there within the community for something to happen. And so it's community board members who just know that. And so it's called an integrated health hub. It's sustainable. There's a fear that ministry funding will disappear for doctor surgery, and the doctor surgery will disappear. And so that's really what people differ. I guess there's a high level of misunderstanding as to how an integrated health fund is funded, and so it's raised, it's got up quite high without people really joining up the dots and going, well, hang on, is it up to council to fund this, or probably more of an issue for, council as such, but the broader Ministry of Health equation.
That makes sense. And we meet quite regularly with the ministers, so we can make sure that they're
We're
supporting.
not going to build a health hub,
Yeah,
but we want to advocate strongly that we need facilities.
Yes, because the people that really need it aren't capable. The people that really need it don't want to drive.
Yeah.
Whereas the people that don't need it that often, they don't mind driving out, so they can drive out. The people that need it really often can't drive. Yeah.
and I thought your rest home and hospital facilities probably in a similar category of a very cool priority to see you have, probably not an LTP ask, but something that you can continue to actively look at. And we can actively support, day jobs, not LTP jobs.
Yeah, so I mean, the rest home is run by a trust. Yeah,
That makes sense.
I don't think that it's really, sort of, it's the community board project, really.
And affordable rentals is probably tied into the community housing model. Okay, we've probably got another one that's an advocacy point. Dining. Are there any LTP aspects to that you've seen so far, or to the side? Is there anything you'd like us to take back to the team that could help there, or is it one you're still throwing around and haven't?
It's identified as a need. Like, that's probably where it came from. You're right. Where you could consider it to be part of the, actually, sorry, you could, and it's been brought to this community board before, a fast food, not fast food, food caravan area in town.
Yeah.
Yes, there was a trading in public places policy back to shortly. It has just been delayed. I have the general council looking over, have I done anything in the resource consent space inappropriate? So that's the hold up, it won't be far.
Yeah, and then the other thing that it could tie into is the town hall rental, whether you, if you have a commercial tenant in that building, could they provide something in that space?
I'll note that and make sure planning are aware. And priority roading and footpaths, do you have any in mind in particular?
Miller's Flat bridges in the plan.
It's derated. It's costing us a lot of money.
That's not the bridge I put at the start, is it?
Yeah, it is.
That's why it was fun.
They took 50 ton or more. What's it's 50 ton max, isn't it, rating?
Yeah, that's.
But now it's 44. No, what's the max you can go?
Oh, 54.
Yeah, 54, but now it's 44, which means trucks have actually got to actually wear out TV Road to use this bridge.
So it gets a funding too.
So, yeah. So it's a 40 minute, it's 40 minute, how many Ks would it be?
21 Ks, yeah.
From Miller's Flat to Miller's Flat, a long way, yeah.
Oh,
So when you're bringing fertiliser into the valley, most of the farms are on this side of the river. and the depot was flat, the trucks are gonna come to Roxbury and then back down to Roxbury, same with leaving with stock, they've got to go up.
Yeah, you see it, okay?
So the wear and tear of the road, yeah, it's having a bit of cost.
And it's the broader economic argument there, really, isn't it, is that, you know, the extra cost is, costing locals, which
Yeah.
means the locals then have got less money to spend at cafes and all that kind of stuff, because spending on these additional transport.
I forgot, I said it's a long way away, but it's still, we're raising the flag.
You've also got free tips in that speech, so keep going.
The other thing that came up in the roading space in the plan was the cycle bridge at a similar spot. Yeah.
Yeah, in Council Street, yeah, but then Quinton said that is already on in there.
That's an operational thing.
Yeah. Is it or?
You can flag.
Oh, yeah, okay, you covered channeling on Council Street.
And definitely,
Council K E.
the,
It wasn't a work, it's not.
Definitely it's-
Challenge, yeah.
quite important for this board to be expressing this now as a priority, so that
And if
everybody knows that, hey, this is what you guys are thinking.
Phil's not here, and I actually grabbed it on this one, the toilets at King George Park,
Oh, yeah.
crap.
Yeah. And another toilets in
And
here.
that's actually, sorry,
No.
I think that one's actually, yeah, it shouldn't be put in year 9, like, put that one.
Alright.
Probably one of the most used toilets in the.
Yeah, and they're awful. And they need to shift them to the other end of the park,
Yeah, they're in the wrong end.
yeah.
So the kids can use it.
Yeah.
Well, and people go to Jimmy's Pies, you watch when they walk down there and they walk back. Don't they? When they pull up to get lunch.
Or they try to get into the house.
No?
Or they try to get into the house. Not the toilet.
Yeah.
Okay, I've added that to the bottom of the table and I'm definitely ticking off protection and attraction for that. Anything else?
Regional leadership, first part of central target, that people stop at.
Great.
So it's actually reasonably important. Because that is, if you're traveling south, this is the first place the central target is stop. And if that's your cruddy toilet, then introduce your central target.
Well, that's really great period for COVID. We're going to be setting us with tourism funding to deliver new public toilets. So we'll go and see what options are available to us now and pop it in the LTP list. You know where we land.
I was joking about regional leadership, but it probably does actually count, doesn't it?
Yeah, if it's the first thing people see on the way in.
I think regional leadership is more around regulation.
That's advocating.
Yeah, so I was being a little bit.
That way, looking at the kind of toilet you built, and there is a lack of disabled toilet facilities in Central, so there's options, and we could leave them all on the table, but I'll take the tip off for now for you. After school care, I've just put in the same category as the others that the board is advocating, not into the LTP, but has. I can see Rebecca's looking, so she's about to give us something else, and then I'll ask you for other things. Just create a new table.
Sorry, Alex, we should have talked.
I should have read this plan.
Well, I sent it out, so.
News.
In here is library, so the kids were keen to explore the library and explore the expansion of Roxburgh Library to include remote working spaces and ensure access for youth and the elderly. Now, that could come up in the hall. Because there's a similar action around, youth space and explore the creation of a teen hangout hubs, library breakout rooms, youth hubs. So it could be library, it could be done in the hall, but it's just to flag it that it's something that's come up by the young folk of town.
I thought they had the scout thing.
They do, but that's for a certain thing. That's Buna Rangatahi have that.
Right.
And so that's for programs that they run. This is for just hang out space, general. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
used to be, so.
yeah.
Yeah.
Protection, attraction, funding, or leadership?
I think protection and attraction, not funds, not the other two. The other one that was being flagged in here is CCTV. Is the desire for CCTV in the village, in Roxburgh anyway.
And it's definitely been discussed at this.
Yeah.
Several times.
Yeah, it's been there.
Yeah,
And that's for the delivery of?
yeah.
Yeah.
Expansion of the existing skate park to include a BMX track. The feedback from the kids is that the Roxburgh skate park is, very focused on younger kids. And so there's a desire to see a track added that, caters for the older as well. Now a lot of that could be externally funded, but it's getting to the point where you can, yeah,
It's gonna be that as well. Yeah. That might be a place before that, yeah.
yeah. And the last one that I noted, was, better equipment at the pool, like, play equipment. And that was a quick read through. No, not all of that, that's 23 cents.
Oh, shade zone. There's some shade, over the some shade.
That's about all I could do.
Is that the pool as well?
Yeah.
It's just the way.
But there was some space.
Yeah. Yeah, and I get.
You need, tinted goggles.
Is there anything else that, this board has, conversations, I mean, it's very obvious with like.
There is, I've had an email from the lady, she's been in the paper a couple of times or once, she's trying to get a laundromat site, and I sort of don't know what council would do it, I mean, I sort of feel like.
It's availability of space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Commercial place, yeah.
Yeah, it's good, yeah, but I think it's just,
Is there anything about the road to Onslow?
well, growing, talked about it a couple of times, people do think it's probably under maintained for the amount of traffic on it, but I know that the voting team did have, one of those tally counter things out above, so they are looking at, I know they're looking at, because it's, part of it will be defined as a track, and it's just. And the other issue was, you can't just keep grading roads, sometimes you gotta put a bit of material back in.
That was that conversation about the voting policy.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was Onslow's that hinterland, right? That's a recreational space in its own right, Ensuring our roads maintain that excellently.
Okay, great, thank you. Also, what we have at this stage, just to recap over it for you, the town will rebuild. We've got the 3 ticks on the protection and faction, and that funding has got more and more obvious attack as we've suggested other things that could be part of the same piece of work to deliver multiple benefits. And we've got the multi-use sports centre and the initial scoping phase to see what the pathway could be. Got those first 3 ticks on it. Got community housing with ticks across the board. The regional leadership is we could come up with a really good model there that does lead others. Priority roading and footpaths. At the moment, I have them listed as Miller's Flat Bridge, the cycle bridge at Miller's Flat, the Castle Street curve in Channeling, and tentatively in a smaller font, the road to Onslow. We've got the King George Park toilets. We've got expanding the library, the delivery of CCTV, expanding the skate park to include BMX track, Grover's Hill, play equipment, shade and seating at the pool. If there is anything else that's not jumping to mind now, just email them to us. It's still a few weeks before this will go to council, so as long as you've included the chair and these followed the process, so then I can keep working on this all the way up to the deadline for you.
Rubbish bins were mentioned, I don't know if the.
Yeah, good point.
The thing in here was, amenities at Miller's Flat to support the cycling activity, and I think when Fagan's reopens that will become a more pronounced.
What are you doing at the sports hub with power? Did you,
This power currently there,
yeah, but didn't you guys lay cable? They haven't hooked it up yet or something?
so there's power there at the moment, so, but from a futures point of view,
Yeah,
when we had a trench, we put a
Copper, yeah,
with a draw cable,
yeah,
because the current cable that services the building is 50 or 70 years old. And there was concern, and we had a concern that potentially that cable broke out.
yeah. So where does that go to though?
It just goes to the front, it goes from the building all the way to the front of the street.
Yeah, where I'm getting at is that, yeah, is you could have a PowerPoint set up for a food caravan or coffee carts or things like that.
What you could do,
Yeah.
you could put a full cable through from the building.
That's what I'm saying in reverse, yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely, yeah.
because that, you know, Fagan's is gonna open hopefully, but, you know, still you've got other things where someone might want evening dining. I just think it's wise to have that as an option.
Yeah.
Okay,
And then if you change it, it works in trading public.
trading in public places, bylaw. and that way.
Yes.
Okay.
In the safety contract, you mean.
Also, that's bring power, yeah.
I've not been on a BMX for many years. Contracts what's in the plan.
Yeah.
You're already planning to visit when it's built in? Just to reverse a minute to the rubbish bins. And what was the specific ask around the
Well,
bins?
that's where I got on next, that's
And it's, more frequent.
Oh, no. No, Becky's on
Oh,
site.
she's up with it.
there is the increased frequency
Yeah.
for Roxburgh, and then a part of that, amenity conversation at Miller's Flat is about rubbish.
Levels of service, isn't it?
And then did you want me to put something in towards a power cable at the sports hub?
No, I was more, sorry, I was just
Thank you.
asking.
Then that is my list for you finished. I can do high, medium, low across this easily. So my final slide for you is the next step, and that is just, I take all this feedback and we'll write it up for the March council meeting. Then as signaled at the start, Saskia will be back in April, May to give you an update how that went. I'm sure Curtis will have already told you by then. And we'll go from there to the next steps.
So when you say it goes to the next council meeting, what's the purpose of that meeting?
I'm giving you the long list from all 4 community boards for a signal of what might be included, but we won't have done any of the work out for advocating, we won't be asking for
What do I do
decisions.
about that?
They're only getting a signal, it's just like.
She's not coming to that point.
No, we'll give you a chance to
Yeah.
give us detail.
No, I think that there potentially, maybe if there's an allergic reaction, they say that often what they give at the table is, you know, we need more information about that. It's really good to do a sense check with council at this stage. For example, if there's any pie in the sky stuff on at the moment, then I think that would actually probably get cut. If we were suggesting to fund after school here, I would imagine at that meeting, the council will go, hold on, that's not council's business. We're indicating early that one probably won't proceed. So, but with all the stuff you've listed, it's all within council's remit. There's nothing, new or crazy for council here.
I leave your Australian toilets and Miller's Flat, it was, oh no, it didn't, toilets, cafes, signage. I'm fine with the new roading policy.
And I sit about 3 meters over from Rebecca, so we'll keep refining this. I'm sure she'll show up with more and I'll sense check in with you as well.
Yeah.
So otherwise, thank you all so much and I will see you in a couple of months.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I wish we had a community plan ready for every community.